This is the Scottish Rugby Podcast.
The Scottish Rugby Podcast.
With Stuart Cameron and Robin Purdie.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Club Rugby Podcast, which is back for this season, looking at the top three divisions in Scottish Club Rugby, which means every week we'll be taking a look at the progress of the 30 clubs from the Premiership, Nationals 1 and 2. And with me this season will be Robin Purdie, commentator and pundit for Rugby Radio, and occasionally we'll be joined by a special guest as well. I'm delighted to say this week Neil Hinnigan is here, Kelso's Director of Rugby, and welcome to you to the podcast.
Hello Stuart, thank you.
Now, Robin, let's start by refreshing everyone's memory about last season and how we've arrived at 10 team leagues right across the board for 2025-2026.
Yes, well, last season 3 went down from the Premiership. I think it was 3 as well from National 1, and we found ourselves with these 4 10-team leagues at the top, which I think a lot of people were after. I personally think it'll have taken some of the jeopardy out of it for this coming season, where we're going back to 1 down and 1 up. But we are where we are, and it seems to, it chops and change. So let's see if this gives us something, that will stick around for a period of time.
Because it really was exciting last year, wasn't it? I mean, not so much for the clubs, particularly down below, but from a media perspective, every game, right to the end of the season, was an important one.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to say it for the second time already this season, the word jeopardy, but we said it, umpteen times a week last. I don't know how sort of relaxing it was for Neil here last season with the 3 down. They done really well to come back and claw their way out of it. But yeah, it just meant there was very few dead rubbers towards the end of the season, particularly the Premiership, where you've got you've got 4 at the top vying for the playoff places, and there was the 3 going down last season, so there was an awful lot of meaningful fixtures right the way through. We might not get that so much at the bottom of the table this season. It will remain to be seen. But yeah, if anybody gets cut adrift early doors, then it's going to be difficult for them to claw their way out of it.
So let's bring in Neil then. Last season, jeopardy was mentioned, of course. 3 went down, and Kelso, as Robin mentioned, were among the bottom sort of 4 or 5 for most of the season. Mid-season, though, you got a really good run. You picked up the Bill McLaren Shield and you ran with it, got your name engraved as well, which was incredible achievement when you consider that you went on a long beaten run.
Yeah, it was. Probably, no one seen that coming at the time, and really including ourselves. Things like the Bill McLaren Shield would have been miles in the distance when we were sitting bottom of the league, sort of middle of November, I think it was, November sometime, and we just, we always knew we had players to come back, and we had to keep working hard and stick together as a group and not panic so much, which is easier said than done. It certainly made us stronger, these things do, if you can get through the other side of them. It wasn't the most enjoyable time, I'll admit, for everyone at the club, but you can't just have it sunshine and roses all the time, and I think, as a squad of players, that's what makes at the moment anyways, Kelso's got a special group, because they can do either or when needed, and the amount of times they've surprised even me with some matches over the years has been, it's been good. So yeah, not so much fun, and jeopardy is probably a good word, but we always knew this time last year that we were heading for that, give or take. We would have liked to have been a little bit comfier, especially towards that Christmas period when you think, right, we can get a wee rest, whereas we couldn't because we had so much to play for. So yeah, it could have been a bit easier on ourselves, but however we got there.
Plenty of injuries, though, of course. Like most clubs, they get the injuries. You had them all at once, it seemed. But when you got them back, the results did improve, and all of a sudden, confidence comes flying back. Yeah,
it did, and we've had a long, hard think about it at the club, and you always learn from losing more than you do winning, and it was one of those learning curves. And looking at this season now, we've got to have that belief in the squad that we can win matches, players down. We've got to go out there and have the confidence that we've got enough depth in the squad to win games, maybe not at our best or missing some players, and I think other teams did that better as us, and I think that we've got to look to do that this season coming to get away from anything like what happened last year. We just got in a bad rut.
Now, the Bill McLaren Shield, of course, we mentioned, ironically, you won it by winning at Marside against the Premiership playoff finalists, doing the double over them as well, which was an incredible achievement. And, of course, the irony is that the Bill McLaren Shield is back with Watsonians, and you've got a chance to get it back again.
Yeah, I mean, it's quirky, isn't it, that it's the same again, so to speak. But
and you're on a 3 in a row?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much bearing last season's results I'll have on this game. I think in the Watsonians camp, then you'd think they'll use it for a bit of fuel in the fire, to say, they've got a score to settle with us, and rightly so. But there's a lot of personnel changes, I would think, in both teams, and it's about, that I think it being the first game of the season's probably a bigger thing than the results last season and so on. But obviously the Bill McLaren Shield brings a little bit of, it's something else to play for us again, and something that if you get hold of it, we felt like it did encourage us again to try and get those home results. We had target games to stay up. That was the be all and end all. But when we were adding the Bill McLaren Shield in as something that would be, our name would be on it forever. And when Kelso had never had their name on it, we'd never even had possession at any point. So it did actually probably come at a good time. So yeah, thankful for it really in the end.
Well, Robin, we're back to the old days now, the 10-team leagues, one down from the Premiership. The playoffs obviously are going to be happening again. The next two divisions are also one up, one down as well. Do you think it could have been probably tweaked? Because when we talk about the playoffs, the only thing I don't like about the playoffs is the fact that you're crowning the Scottish champions via a playoff route. I think playoffs are fantastic for end of season. I'd love to see 9th in the Premiership play second in the National One. We've had a few ding-dong battles in the past before, which has really created a buzz. There's definitely room for playoffs and room to stop potential dead rubbers, which this could be this season.
We've spoken through the summer about the possibility of dead rubbers this season. It'll remain to be seen. I think there's an argument to say that second in National One, there's almost too big a gulf to the Premiership now, but I don't think that is the case this season because of who's come down and who's left in National One. You've got Stirling in there, you've got Mar, you've got Edinburgh Accies now, Glasgow Accies are upwardly mobile, so this season of all seasons, yeah, I agree. I would have liked to have seen 9th versus 2nd, just for that bit more to play for towards the end of the season. Last season was a wee bit of an anomaly, of course, in the Premiership, with there being 3 down and obviously the Super Series clubs from before coming in, Ayr and HERIOT'S and whatnot. I think everybody out with HERIOT'S, Ayr, Watsonians and probably Currie. Last season it was a case of just staying in the division no matter where you finish. As long as it's above 10th, then you're laughing, and obviously that's what Kelso did at the end. You get there by any means. While I get your point on the playoffs at the top of the Prem, I disagree in that I think it adds to the lack of dead rubbers. I do. If I'm being honest, I see the top 4 being the same top 4, not necessarily in the same order, but I do see it being the same top 4 this season. But yeah, there'll be stuff to play for from the middle of the table upwards. You'd like to hope as the season wears on, and it'll just, at the bottom of the table, it'll just remain to be seen if anybody gets cut adrift, because we've seen in divisions before, it happened to Jed, it's happened to Aberdeen Grammar. When you get cut adrift, it kind of peters out, to be honest.
Now, Neil, I don't know if you personally go to the Premiership forum, but someone from Kelso would have obviously been there and reported back to you as Director of Rugby. Has that come up at all, the 9th v 2nd thing, the revitalisation of that, or is it something which has been totally discarded this year?
Yeah, I think all things have been considered on the table and it has been talked about. I mean, it's one of those situations. I think right now it was the biggest issue was to get back to the 10-team leagues, mainly due to fixture congestion, is what the chat has been from all the top clubs and the lower clubs, that it's just too many games, and that was the thing. Regarding playoffs, it does get discussed regularly, but I mean, unless you're Ayr, but they've openly said they like the playoffs even if they finish top. They want a climax this season. They want big crowds, at Melrose, and I understand it completely from their point of view. And I would say the other clubs probably fancy their chances via the playoffs rather than finishing top, so they tend to vote for it. You know what I mean? That's, and if you're maybe at the other end of the table and thinking we could do with survival or whatever, it's the last thing on your mind, really. So it probably doesn't get a proper thorough look through what could work best, in my opinion, but that may be what is best, and I don't know either what is best, but the amount of points that Ayr won the league by last year, it would have been a travesty if they hadn't won the championship.
Yeah, but are we going to every year kind of talk about travesties and things that could happen? Because when Currie were in the semi-final, they were 5 minutes from getting to the final.
Yeah, I understand.
And then we would have been talking travesties again, and we have in the past. It's quite funny because when Mar became Scottish champions, should have been Currie. When Currie were champions, should have been Hawick, and all the rest of it. And in the Super Six, of course, at the end, Stirling were crowned the champions in fourth place out of 6 teams. That's the grey area for me, certainly, Robin.
I think so, and I'm on record plenty of times before saying that I would just make it the same as Super League, Rugby League. You know, there's a league leader shield. You finish the season top of the pile, you get the league leader shield, and then the top 8 or whatever go into the playoffs. So there's some recognition. I mean, that's a £100 solution to a problem right there. Kind of new.
So why
trophy.
is it not being done, Neil?
I don't know. I think, as I say, clubs look at the intake from home matches like semi-finals and things like that, and you have to remember, you know, Kelso finished 4th before the Super Series finished, and it was a great achievement and all the rest of it. It was a real novelty for us. We weren't immediately thinking we'll be back there next year. The likes of Ayr, HERIOT'S, Currie, they're getting a chance of it most years, so they can take a bit of heartache. You know, I think they live for that. You know, they're there every year. I think it'd be harsh for one of the teams maybe to run a great run of form in a league and finish top of the pile and then lose, you know, somebody that's not there regularly. So let's say somebody come out of the park this year, finish top of the league. You know, would you fancy them in a playoff against Ayr, even at home? You know what I mean? In that situation. So therefore, I get what you're saying, but I think the clubs that are qualifying for it regularly are happy with it, and I think that until that changes, I don't see it changing.
How much say do the players actually get? Not just in this decision, but I mean all decisions.
Regarding league structure, none really. I think there will be things fed through. Obviously, we have a process and we take things there, but it's not a huge voice.
Does that concern the players? Would they like more of a voice, or are they just happy to get on the field and play what's in front of them?
Most of them are happy just to get on the field and play, but I think there's been situations like that players are completely disengaged with, and that's when that starts to happen, you've got a real problem. When that's happening, you probably do need a player voice. At the moment, I think we've had a little bit of a shake-up, and the dust's kind of settled at the moment. So I think they've got to run with it at the moment with how things are, and then, you know, they should be reviewing it all the time. But I think, you know, I would like to think they'll run with this for a few years yet and see, you know, maybe four seasons or whatever, 5 seasons, 5 years, and if it needs to change again. But I think right now we're at the start of probably relatively start of a new cycle, and what's there's what's there.
I agree with that. You got to embed something now and give it a proper chance. I think everybody's in agreement that 10 teams is the way. 10 teams is the way forward. It's just what do you do with up and down, and you know that might get tweaked going forward. But you've got to have a period of stability now, and if there's tweaks to the overall season that still are required, because we get to May, wait to May 26th and we're all going, oh my word, what a long season it's been. Then it's the Cup or it's the Border League or it's the Sevens or whatever. The league campaign has to stay now as the league campaign, this 10-team format for a period of time, and let's see what happens.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the Premiership then, and who's in, who's out for 2025-26, and we're going to talk about each of the 10 teams in detail, hear from all the clubs taking part, in fact, in the Premiership. Let's begin with our commentary game on Rugby Radio. It's Melrose against HERIOT'S at the Green Yards. There'll be television highlights on ITV and also Borders Rugby TV as well, and it's a repeat of last year's opening fixture, which was won by HERIOT'S. So let's hear from both camps, starting with Melrose head coach Scott Wight.
Pre-season's been fun. Loads of numbers down. Obviously, you know what it's like amateur rugby wise. There's people dip in, dip out, a few farmers, obviously a few youngsters putting up marquees. So you've just got to juggle it as best as you can, to be honest. But look, pre-season's been fairly positive. One up at Peebles. We've played Peebles and Jed in the Border League, given loads of people a run and subsequently made it really difficult for ourselves to pick a team for this weekend. Good to have this season. Obviously, we've got Paddy Anderson, Donald Crawford, Tam Brown and Sam Derrick back. So these are guys that pretty much didn't feature at all. So great to have the three, Paddy, Donald and Sam Derrick back. They had loads of kind of experience. They played the next level up at Super 6 and stuff for a few years. So great to welcome, good local players back into the squad. I think the other thing that we've done through the summer, Al Ferry was obviously late to return to rugby through injury. So he's actually went out to Australia to the Souths club team that Declan and Currie are from, and he went out there with Struan Hutchison. So Struan Hutchison, Will Owen, Ben White and Dylan Coburn all move on to pastures new. Struan's obviously out in Australia, going to go back to Australia. Will Owen is currently travelling at the moment, and we wish Ben White all the best as he signs for Edinburgh and Dylan Coburn as he signs for Glasgow. On more positive news from a club point of view, Al will return back kind of mid-September, so he'll kind of be back in and up and running for Currie at home. So he'll miss the first 4 or 5 games of the season, which we felt was important, so it kind of went from 8, 9, 10 games at the end of the season straight into 9 games in Australia, so it's important he kind of gets a wee bit off season. So he's out doing a bit travelling around with a girlfriend at the moment in Australia, and he will come back, so he will then be available for selection September the 20th against Currie, which will be an excellent boost. New faces around the club that you'll potentially see throughout the next few weeks. Great to have Finn Douglas and Rory Campbell back, both obviously coming through the youth system there, and both kind of experienced different ways of life. Finn coming from Pro Rugby in France back, and Rory Campbell been out in Hong Kong for the last few years. So great to welcome 2 guys with real talent. Ollie Furness joins us from Peebles, just fresh off the McPhail Scholarship. Calum Ram joining us down from Edinburgh. Stuart Kirk and Sam Rainey have both relocated to the area with professions and jobs, so they both played at Dundee last year, so they've both come in. Young Hen Bo coming straight from Loreto. Ollie Anderson coming straight out of Stumel, so 2 school kids. Heno in the back row and Ollie Anderson tight head prop, which will be great. And Rowan Frostwick. So Rowan's obviously up the road from Ampthill. He's played a couple of GB Sevens tournaments over the summer, and his obviously main goal is push on in the 7th season, whatever that looks like. So he's at club, but great to have his experience around that. And then in a few weeks' time, Logan Carroll will arrive in from Tiamanu. So Tiamanu were the Sevens team played at the Sevens. Enjoyed his time so much that he's heading over for the season, which is great. So look, few new faces. You'll maybe see a few of them featuring over the next few weeks, as I say. Team selection wise, look, great to have Premiership Rugby back. Great to be playing one of the top teams and challenge yourself straight away. So we know HERIOT'S, the game they play, wide expansive rugby, fast flowing. So we're hoping for a great game of rugby down at the Green Yards on Saturday. And look, we know we've got to be consistent, and that was kind of my key message last year, that we've got to be consistent around the basics, and if we do that, we've got a chance. But at this level and in this league against the top teams, essentially, you don't get the second chance. So it's important that we execute our basics well. And if we do that, look, we'll have a chance. We're coming off some good results against Peebles and Jed, but we know that obviously the opposition will be in a much better position, and obviously stronger players, just given the nature of the beast. So boys are really excited. We've got rugby all morning for the under-15s. So the rugby kicks off in the Green Yards on Saturday morning. 12 o'clock, the seconds are playing a triangular against Dunbar firsts and HERIOT'S seconds, and then the big event at 3 o'clock, and where Melrose will play HERIOT'S. So the club's in a good place. It's vibrant. There's a lot of people been training. There's good competition for places, and look, we're looking forward to starting the Premiership on Saturday.
And head coach for HERIOT'S once again is Bob McKillop.
This time last year, I think it said this was a bit of a voyage into the unknown. It was a transition year for Scottish Club Rugby after the Super 6 experiment had been dismantled. This year it feels like a voyage into the unknown, because we have pretty much a largely new team at HERIOT'S, which is exciting. We've lost some very, very highly regarded top individuals like Michael Linus, Chris Keane, Jamie Campbell, Ross Jones, people like that. So we've lost a hell of a lot of experience, but we've replaced it with a lot of enthusiasm and some really hugely impressive youngsters in our 2 warm-up games against Watsons and Tynedale. So Rory Brogan, straight from Fettes College, has been outstanding for us on the wing. Calum Jessup, still only 17 years old, from Stuart's Melville College, has been equally impressive. So, we're really looking forward to seeing how some of these youngsters play. We're lucky that Rory Leishman has agreed to be captain for one more season. So we just can't wait to get going now, and what better place to start than the Green Yards.
Well, let's unpack some of that. Rory Brogan going to HERIOT'S first of all. What an exciting talent he is.
Oh, that's a coup, for sure. We've seen a lot of him in the sevens in one capacity or another, and he's still a very young lad. I think he's still only 18. So that's a good signing. By the sounds of things, HERIOT'S have lost a few, but you imagine they're going to be strong. They've got that luxury of the school system. A guy comes in from Stumel, Brogan comes in. HERIOT'S will be there or thereabouts. To be honest, I really like the look of what's happening at Melrose. Not just so much players coming in and whatnot. They've made some good signings, but they've got likes of Derek coming back. That is like a new signing. Tam Brown, Ferry for me, absolutely massive. When he came in last season, there was a period of 8-9 games. He was the player of the player of the moment across all the teams. He walks into any team, and I include Ayr in that. But ironically, it coincided with a time when they started to lose a load of games. So they're the best player in the league at the time, and they started to lose a load of games. So did the others expect too much of him, and do they need to set up? But you look back 3-4 years, we end a Super 6. What was happening in the club team? Let's be honest, certainly for the outside looking in, it looked a bit of a basket case, the place. But they've turned it round, and they've got some good stuff going on there. They've got their academy, they've got this invitational sevens team. Can that be used as a recruitment tool? And we spoke a lot last season, Stuart, about the onus is, if the league's going to be competitive, the onus is not on Ayr to become worse. The onus is on everybody else to get up to that level. Now, is that going to happen overnight for anybody? No, it's not. Is it going to happen over a 5-year period? Possibly, but you need to get the building blocks in place now, and that, it looks to me, that's what Melrose are doing, and they're doing it off the field as well. It looks with a lot of social stuff going on. That'll all be putting coffers into the pot, and Finn Douglas coming back, Rory Campbell coming back. That's a bit of a coup. Be interesting to see how he goes now that some of the Super 6 lads are back in the division. He was a really, really good player at this level prior to his sojourn overseas. It'll be interesting to see at number 8 how he goes against the big bruisers, the Leishmans, the McPhersons, the Hasdals, those kind of guys. But outside looking in, appears to be a pretty good place, the Green Yards, at the moment.
Your own thoughts on that, Neil? Because obviously they've got strength and depth there if they can keep people on the park, and they did a big double last year, like you did, as we mentioned, the double over Currie, and then let a few slip. They only won one of their 6 games in the Board League.
That's the one area that they'll look to improve on, and I'm sure they will. I would agree with Robin that they're showing the ambition to actually get something in place that can have some longevity to it. They are well adversed at Melrose to doing that. I mean, they only came out of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country due to Super 6, and then coming back through that system again, where they were in National 1 and they were parachuted back out of the Premiership. But now that they're in there again and they've had a year to settle in, they're starting to do the right things again, and they've got a building block there that looks pretty solid for me. I would say in the Borders, certainly they've got the most depth. There might be 2 or 3 individuals at other clubs that are slightly better as some of their players, up and down, who knows. But regarding numbers, Melrose are the leading team in the Borders for me regarding that. They also have the 3G pitch as well, which is a big home advantage, and bringing guys like Rory Campbell back, that really suit him. He's fast across the ground, he likes ball in hand. He's not so much a big bruiser as some of the players that Robin was mentioning, but when Melrose are on the front foot playing well at the Green Yards, you could expect him to be right in the middle of it. You
get Ferry doing the damage, taking 4 points to haul him down in the room, the space that leave for Campbell coming round the corner.
100%. He will play that style. The style that they play suits Rory Campbell, and they're a Melrose lad initially as well, so it's good for them to be bringing some local boys, and they'll try to think outside the box regarding players and partnerships around the world to try and, that's how difficult it is around here to recruit. I know first hand how difficult it is, so you can look into some sides of what they're trying to do, but it's also difficult. So for me, I think they deserve a lot of credit for where they've managed to almost become a guaranteed mid-table team without,
Agreed.
you know, this time last year people were fearing the worst for them, but I think now you would fancy them to be thereabouts. I fancy them for 4th place.
I would put them down as best of the rest, but I wouldn't be in any way surprised if they finished 4th.
And what about HERIOT'S then? Because we were always talking last season about Ayr and HERIOT'S. Watsonians were kind of comfortably 3rd. It was a case of Currie or Melrose or Selkirk. But HERIOT'S, of course, got knocked out in the playoffs, lost the Bill McLaren Shield to Watsonians.
For me, I was at that match. Watsonians completely outplayed them. HERIOT'S a very good team, obviously. The guys are losing their huge stalwarts, and they're not just players that are good on the pitch, they're really good off it. I know them all pretty personally as well, and they're just really good guys to have around your club. But if HERIOT'S have got ambition to topple Ayr in the next 2-3 seasons, they probably did need to start a new page and try and build it again. And they're probably just really starting that process off. They had to make room for players coming in. I mean, you can't recruit players that are going to be playing behind the likes of Michael Linus, Chris Keane, Ross Jones. You're not going to find youngsters that can put them out the team regularly, so they've now got space to do that, and that will help them. But if you were ever going to get HERIOT'S, it's first league game. That's when you want them.
So bearing all that in mind and all that you've said, and talking up Melrose and being concerned genuinely about HERIOT'S, prediction for tomorrow, Robin?
I'm certainly looking forward to it, Stuart, that's for sure. I think there'll be a decent crowd down there tomorrow, and I can see Melrose, Neil said, fast track, first game of season, strength and depth. I fancy Melrose to shade it.
Neil?
I fancy Melrose, yep.
It's going to be interesting, and we look forward to that one, and that's our live commentary game tomorrow. Of course, we're on air at 2:30 till 5 o'clock, and we've also got a special programme from now on at 7 o'clock, which will be our rugby roundup, and we're looking forward to hearing from the players and the coaches after the game, doing the league tables. So that's happening 7 o'clock every Saturday, as well as our 2:30 to 5 o'clock show on Rugby Radio. Well, the second game is Ayr against Glasgow Hawks. Still in charge of the Scottish champions is Grant Anderson.
We've had a really positive pre-season, which started with just a general discussion with the boys about where we felt we were as a group, how last season went, which we know was successful, but beneath the surface, what we felt we could improve on. I was really pretty clear that there's no way we could have any kind of complacency whatsoever. And in my mind, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. So we were pretty honest about what we're looking for from pre-season and the season as a whole. We set our targets, and I think the boys have really bought into pushing our game on and trying to elevating our performances ultimately. Even times last year, there was times during games where we'd won the game, maybe it switched off a little bit, and we weren't in a position to execute a variety of different options, maybe due to our fitness or our decision making or our mentality or just other different reasons. So we've worked a lot on all of those factors over pre-season, and we're really trying to push the level that we're able to operate at. In terms of players, we lost James Malcolm. He has gone into the family business and wants to focus more on his career, and has taken a break away from rugby/retirement. I'm still hopeful that he might change his mind, because he's been a big part of the group for a number of years. He's a great guy, and he's still mates with a lot of the boys. So at the moment, the tagline is that he's not playing, but we'll see what happens there. Tom Lanny's going to be going travelling. He's with us for the first couple of games of the season, and then he's going travelling with one of his friends, so he will be a miss to us. It probably provides an opportunity for Jack Craig, who we agreed to let go to GHA last year to, well, one, get exposure to adult rugby, but two, ultimately allow him to play as many minutes as he possibly could, with a view to maybe making the Scotland under-20s squad, which ultimately didn't come to much, but certainly he was a big part in a lot of the performances last year for GHA, and scored a lot of individual tries, which was great to see. So we're keen to see how Jack can integrate into our system and apply those skills in the Premiership under a wee bit more pressure, but certainly has had a really positive pre-season. We have a young loosehead prop, Jake Payton, who has come through our pathway system, was in the under-18s last year and has taken physicality and the work rate of our forwards. He's taken to it like a duck to water, really. He loves it. So he is someone that I'm hoping that you'll see feature throughout the season. Wee bit too early for him yet at the start of the season, but as the season goes on, I'll no doubt look to bring him in. From that point of view, we're quite a settled squad, which is really pleasing from the point of view that the boys are happy with the culture at the club and the ethos and what we're all about. The guys, especially the forwards and some of the backs, have been together for quite a while, and that's all led by Blair, who is a major driving force on the pitch and off the pitch in our standards and in the way we want to approach things. So that's really positive. In terms of our coaching setup, so Pat is still with us. Craig Osman comes in as assistant coach. He kind of dipped in and out last year between the twos and the one, so he's solidified in that role. Bobby BT will be a player coach, and Fraser Climo has taken the decision to focus on the under-18s with the new formation of the new league, but also for us looking at how we can bridge the gap between under-16s, under-18s and our first 15, because what we're finding is at the moment there's a lot of talent in those squads, but the jump between under-18 rugby as it was last year and everything that goes around that environment to our environment with the first 15 was quite substantial. So hopefully putting Fraser Climo in there is going to help bridge the gap. And already Pat's been down coaching with the 18s. I've been about it. Craig Osman's been about it as well. So it just creates a more solidified pathway from that point of view. Again, always happy to support the show. I think you guys do a great job, and I know you'll be looking forward to the season getting started. We certainly are. It's been a long old slog pre-season, so the boys are excited about Saturday and keen to start the season off on a nice sunny day at Milbury.
And there's been a change in the coaching staff at Glasgow Hawks. Andy Hill no longer in charge. It's now the very experienced former HERIOT'S boss, Phil Smith.
We've got Ayr this weekend in the opener for the season, which is exciting news for another new crop of Hawks players. Regarding selection and sort of our team at the moment, we're a little bit short as far as frontline personnel, just due to injuries and unavailabilities. I probably down to maybe the start of the season coming a little bit forward. However, that's for everybody. In respect of preparation, the boys are basically ready to go. We're very excited, and hopefully we can give the boys a good crack, taking on the league champions, and then set ourselves up for the rest of the season.
Phil Smith now in charge, as I say, of Glasgow Hawks. Fair to say, Robin, Ayr still the hot favourites?
Oh, for me, off the board, Stuart, to be honest, what would I give you if I was a bookie? 6-1 on? 5-1 on?
Until the playoffs, of course.
Funny you should say that, because I've been looking at the first 6 fixtures for all the teams. I've got them in front of me here. Ayr or Glasgow Hawks at home, then HERIOT'S away, Melrose away, Currie at home, Watsonians away, then Hawick at home. There's 4 of the toughest assignments of the whole season. HERIOT'S away, Watsonians away, Melrose away, and Currie at home. Now, it's all got to come down to the first 6 games in terms of the competitiveness of the season. If Ayr drop a couple of games there, then we've got a league on our hands. If Ayr win all those 6 games and they've already chalked off Watsonians away, HERIOT'S away, Melrose away and Currie at home, it's game over. Good night, Vienna. The league is 6 games in.
No, it's not. They have the playoffs.
They'll top the league. They'll get home semi, which they'll win. They'll get home final, which they'll nigh on certain to win.
You said they would win last year as well, and Currie took them to 5 minutes.
Aye, well, 6 games, first 6 games. If Ayr come through them all, it's good night, Vienna.
Okay, Neil, thoughts?
I watched that game, Currie, and I get what you're saying, but Ayr look like the favourites again. They look really settled, which is even better than going out with mass recruitment. They already had the best players in the league. They've retained the best players in the league. And their coaching setup is phenomenal, and they're now buying into the fact that under-18s rugby's the key at the moment to building further ahead. And for me, as a borderer, I'm concerned around the under-18s league, around the semi-junior league in the borders and the teams that are competing in it, which is a great league in its own right. But you look at the standards that they're going to be reaching, guys like Fraser Climo, and these other teams that are in that as well, the strong Glasgow teams, Edinburgh teams, that league will become more of a feeder ground to the likes of Ayr and the Edinburgh clubs, and we'll have literally none compared to that standard. So for me, that's a concern going forward. But for the now and the present, Ayr look the out-and-out favourites.
The thing about Glasgow Hawks in the past, they've probably used more players than any other team in the Premiership. And Andy Hill, when he was in charge, of course, he never had a settled team to work with.
Yeah, I'd say it's the age-old problem for Hawks. We always used to say to Andy that he's got the toughest job out there because of the revolving door, and it'll be the same this season. Student population, some of them will come in a bit later, and guys will come to Glasgow to work, and guys will leave Glasgow and all the rest of it. But they've got some good high-profile, if you like, coaches in there now as well. Like say Adam Ash is back in the game, so they're a wee bit of an unknown quantity. That they, for me, probably exceeded my expectations last season. I thought they went pretty well. They became tougher to beat. It's just so hard to predict with Glasgow Hawks. One thing, just to go back there, it wasn't lost on me. Was it last week or a few days ago on their social media? Some photos of the likes of Blair McPherson, the likes of Jamie Shedden looking absolutely gargantuan. I'm sure those photos were out there tactical.
Would you reckon, Neil?
Yeah, definitely. They like a bit of intimidation at Ayr, and they're quite rightly so. If you've got in your armoury, you've got to,
You've got to flaunt it.
Well, there's no point in having a Ferrari and keeping it in the garage. Isn't it? I think Jamie Shedden will be happy with that he's been, compared to Ferrari. Not so much Blair. I think he's more like a tank. But at the end of the day, that is the comparison that you're looking at with these guys. They are huge in this league, and they are the top players. I'd just like to touch on Hawks. I worked with Phil Smith at HERIOT'S, and great guy. Glass is always half full. I was always half empty. So he's a good guy, a really good coach for them to bring in, and he'll bring a lot of enthusiasm to what they're doing. But it was interesting for him to say they were missing players, because that was never something he would really bring up. So I would suspect they might be missing a few this week. So obviously Ayr away was always going to be tough no matter what.
It's a free hit though, isn't it?
Yeah, no one's expecting them to go to Mulberry and win, realistically.
Get out of the way.
Yeah, if you're going to miss players, miss them away Ayr.
Cotton wool job.
Why not? Absolutely. And we've discussed that all season, didn't we, about save your best players for the matches, particularly last year when there was 3 going down, and we saw this time and time again. The Musselburgh was 80 points or so, and Hawick 92-0, of course. You have to concentrate on the matches where you've got a real chance of getting points.
Oh, because we're still in this climate where it's the halves and the have-nots. There's the 3 or 4 teams at the top, and there's the rest. Let's be honest about it. And a bit less jeopardy this season, only 1 down, but you still want to beat the teams around you to ensure that safety first and foremost, because that's what a number of these clubs will be looking at, safety at all costs, and then go from there.
Well, moving on to match number 3 tomorrow, it's Currie against Selkirk. We remember last season Currie started badly, 3 defeats on the trot to Ayr, Melrose and Edinburgh Accies as well, before winning a narrow game against Hawick at Millennium Park. But they soon got into their stride. We can hear from both head coaches ahead of this one. Selkirk's Sesh Henderson in a second. And first, the man in charge at Currie, once again, is Mark Cairns.
So we've retained the majority of our squad from last year, which we were really happy about. We had a good season, finishing in top 4, which was a tough ask at the start, having the Super 6 teams joining back in. So we're really pleased with how the season went, falling at that kind of hurdle against Ayr away in the semi-final. But yeah, they're a tough team to beat, so fairly happy with how last year went. So to retain that squad is great. The guys that we do lose are Graham Carson and Ian Sim, who've both retired. James McKaig has also stepped away to focus on his coaching, and he'll actually be leading our 2s this year, with Ali Donaldson stepping in to support our under-18s. Ryan Southern is the only one who's moved to another club, and he's headed off to Stirling County. New guys that are in are Alex Maxwell, who's a prop, Leicester Tigers Academy background and Scottish age grade cap. Alex Duncan, who's a 9, he's a Scotland under-18 player who's come up from Millfield School, and Glenn Faulds, who was at the club and then left to play Super 6 at Burrymuir, and then last year he spent some time at Falkirk, but he wants to return and play in the Premiership this year, and he'll be a 10, 15. He can really play anywhere, but he really wants to make that 10 position his own. The other thing we've got is our 2s. They won the top league last year, which is a great achievement considering teams like HERIOT'S and Ayr retained many of their Super 6 players, and so had very strong second teams. So these guys have showed up well in pre-season, and many are pushing for one's positions. So we're in a good place. From a coaching perspective, we've retained Paul Hill, who is a tight head at Edinburgh Rugby. He's also an England cap, and he has 170 odd appearances for Northampton Saints before he came up north. So he's a great guy to have involved, and he'll focus on scrum or maul and other aspects of forward play. Gregor Hunter comes back to the club to help with our backs, skills and kick. Our kick game is something I'm really keen to improve, and Gregor's already made an impact there. My brother, Ben, is back at the club and replaces Joey Reynolds, who's stepped away from rugby to have more time with his family. We wish him well. So Ben's come in to lead our defence and our backs. He's an excellent coach, although I'm a little bit biased. It'll be interesting on the sidelines. Last time he was there, he was the head coach and I was assisting. So the roles have reversed, but so far so good. But he's definitely keeping me on my toes. In terms of this weekend, we host Selkirk, who had a really strong year last year. I think they would have been really happy with where they finished off, but they'll be wanting to push for their top 4 finish. So very similar ambitions to us. Sesh and his team will have prepared the guys well, and we'll need to be at our best to take the points. We want to be in the playoffs come the end of the season. It's a long way away, but you've got to win your home matches consistently to have a chance, and that will be our aim on Saturday.
Well, also keeping his head coach role at Selkirk is Sesh Henderson.
We are really excited to get the Premiership started this weekend against Currie. It's going to be it's going to be a challenge up there. We found it difficult over the last couple of years. We were giving them big starts, and we've come back into the game and end up getting bonus points out of the game, but we know, and our mindset has to be that we need to get it right from the start and don't give them any space cheaply. So our defensive line has to be intact. We need to put our tackles in because they run hard at you. They get good offloads, and they've got a back line that will hurt you if you give them space as well. So we've learnt a lot from the Gala game. It wasn't our best, slickest performance, but we worked hard on Tuesday night to get working on a few things that didn't quite go right. Squad-wise, not quite finalised as team yet, just for a couple of knocks from the weekend. But however, in the squad will definitely be some young guys from Selkirk, from Lachlan, Ferguson, Manojo, Brodie Allen. Really excited to see how these guys go in the Premiership this year. Along with Gabe Malt will be in the starting squad as well. Stephen Murray, who's joined us this year. So look, I'm excited for these guys to see how they get on in a Selkirk jersey. But it's all about the performance and how our mindset going into this game. Heading to Currie is probably a good time to get them, to be fair, but we need to go out there and make sure we come away with points, and if we put the right sort of game together, we will.
That's Sesh Henderson, head coach of Selkirk. Now, can Selkirk do a Melrose and win at Millennium Park first time out?
They can. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. You have to fancy Currie at home, but Currie got off to a slow start last season. Of course, sounds like there's been a few positive changes there at Currie as well. Fald's good player, as Mark alluded to. We've seen him perform well for Currie in the inter-district championship, so that's a good signing there. Ben Cairns being in among the coaching, Gregor Hunter as well. If they want to improve their kicking game, then he was one of the best at it in the club game when he was around. So, but Currie, Neil mentioned before, about what's coming through, strength and depth, and what some of the clubs have, and Mark touched on their strength and their seconds. Currie are one of those teams that they can, particularly in the forwards, they can bring 2 in for the seconds. It doesn't weaken them all that much. They're big, powerful lads, and they've got this under-18 setup as well. As a club, they look to be in a good place. And Selkirk, new signings, well, Monroe Job's like one of those, I can vouch for, because I see it a lot. I see him in the gym. I've seen him, really working hard on his rehab, and he's a physical specimen nowadays. Don't know much about the young, I think I assume he's a young 10, but McComb being away to Australia, that's going to be a miss. He's the man to get that very potent backline clicking. And Stevie Murray, that's a good signing. That you wouldn't have seen that one coming. Guy that's played over 300 times for Highland. He's a handy prop. So yeah, both. I don't see either of these clubs being certainly in the shake up at the bottom, and I would imagine Currie will very much have their sights on playoffs and not just necessarily 4.
And Currie, very, very consistent, always getting into the playoffs, it seems.
Yeah, they do. I think, looking at, you touched on it earlier, how close Currie. They were the only team last year to beat Ayr, and they were the only team to maybe really give them any sort of scare. So If they can build on that and looking at the coaching structure they've now got in place, which you'd think would improve them again, they've kept a settled squad, they've signed a couple of guys, maybe Currie are a good shout for second place.
Do you know, I was just going to say that. I mean, if you were putting a gun to my head saying, who's going to be the finalists, if it works that way, then I would actually go for an Ayr Currie final this year, because there are changes at HERIOT'S and there are changes at Watsonians. We don't know what sort of impact that change is going to be, but it certainly gives other clubs the opportunity to maybe try and get into the playoffs as well at the expense of HERIOT'S and Watsonians.
Well, yeah, I think pushing, sort of predicting Melrose, maybe have a shout at fourth. I think the reason why is because I think it's a little bit more open below Ayr this year. I think Ayr have, and then listen to Currie, they seem in a similar situation, and they were never that far away anyways. They got off to a bad start last year, but I'm sure that's on their mind, and they will know that probably cost them a chance of a home semi-final. Now, if they'd finished second, they probably would have potentially made the final of that league as well. So they'll know how vital it is to get off to a good start if your ambition's to get a home semi-final. And, Currie's got to have that a sort of ambition that the top four would be a minimum.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if they finished second, to be honest.
Yeah.
Co-captains at Selkirk, Corrie Tate, who's been promoted to that level, and along with Andrew McComb this year. And Corrie was a fantastic influence last season.
Oh, what a signing. Him, Jack Fisher, Bronland, who I think's coming back this season, I've heard. Not as strong a squad, not as strong a 23 or a 25 or an up to 30 players, if you like, than the Curries, and probably on paper Melrose, first 15 wise, strong, but Selkirk are maybe just 2 or 3 injuries away from finding themselves dragged down the table. Tate absolutely being one of those. What a performer he was last season. The likes of Fisher, etc. So yeah, but if they can keep a clean bill of health like they did last season, and we spoke about before, if you start off well and there's a good buzz about the place, then the knocks don't become quite so sore, and guys want to get taped up and get on with it, and they can look ahead to this campaign with quite a lot to look forward to, I would say.
So we've gone with 2 home wins so far. This is the 3rd game. Home win again, is it?
I'd have to say so, Stuart, yeah.
I'll take Currie to sneak it.
Yeah, I think Currie as well. That will be all that Selkirk and Sesh need to motivate their team at Millennium Park tomorrow. Well, Hawick v GHA is up next. GHA champions of National 1, getting over the line ahead of many people's favourite Stirling County, and they were unbeaten. Their only blip was a draw against Stirling. Hawick's build up to the Premiership close season has been marred by 2 cancelled warm-up games, but let's see what both head coaches have to say, starting with the Greens. Graham Hogg.
First home game of the season. We're really looking forward to starting our campaign off at home at Mansfield Park against a newly promoted GHA team. Really looking forward to the challenge that GHA will bring us. I say it's a little bit of the unknown at this time of year for myself and other coaches in regards to what teams are going to bring. Never mind a team who's coming up from the league below. I think the big thing for us is just we need to concentrate on ourselves. The boys have worked really, really hard in pre-season. We started pre-season the end of June, so that seems a long time ago now. It's all been geared towards what we do in this very first weekend at home. New recruits, we're really looking forward to Guillaume Moraldo, our French back row from Lyon, coming in. He'll start at number 8 this week. He's been really, really impressive in pre-season, and we're looking forward to how he goes. And there's obviously been an influx of Hawick Youth under-18 players moving up to senior rugby this year. I think the Hawick squad old, we really hang our hat on the conveyor belt of talent coming through. So really looking forward to seeing boys like Connor McLeod, Mikey Swales, Connor Crawley, Luke Scott. I know he was Gala originally, but he's now Green. We're seeing how these boys test themselves in senior rugby and in Premier 1 rugby.
Calum Forrester, former coach of Ayr, Scotland Sevens cap as well, is in charge of GHA. And the last time they played Hawick at Mansfield Park, they very nearly got a win. So they won't be fazed by a trip to the borders.
It's been a really busy summer at GHA as we've been building on the foundations of the club and what was a successful season last year. Off the pitch, we've really been looking to build towards the future with the appointment of Damien Cheney as Director of Youth Performance. Damien returns to the club after a stint in 2007-2008 season. He comes with a wealth of experience that we've already lent on from a first 15 perspective, having been involved in the Chiefs Super Rugby programme in New Zealand under-20 selector, and as high performance manager at Counties Manawatu. His role is also complemented by the appointment of Andrew Gilman as the head coach of the under-18s, so the future of the club is in safe hands. In the senior squad, we have added the experience of Colin Sturgeon to our first 15 coaching team. Colin is an experienced Premiership campaigner, being a Premiership winner, Scottish Club internationalist, and his experience will be invaluable as we aim to establish ourselves in the top flight again. Colin will operate our back line alongside player coach Andrew Gowdy. The club has also continued its relationship with Kev Winus, who's been down working hard with our forwards in both senior squads and under-18s, and this has complemented the excellent work that former first 15 captain and forwards coach Jamie McCarthy has built over the last few seasons. Off the pitch as well, we have also made a significant investment into our S&C programme, teaming up with the Training Academy as a venue, and the programme has been led by ex-First 15 stalwart Ryan Jenkins, who's also assisting with the S&C of our newly launched GHA Academy. As a club, we are under no illusions as to how big a challenge and step up Premiership will be for us this season. The last couple of years, the players have built great foundations, team spirit, and an ethos that has galvanised us to promotion last season. This has been driven by our first 15 captain, Darryl Ewing, and club captain, Michael Fox, both of whom will continue in these roles, driving the standards from within, alongside the senior player group, holding the rest of the squad accountable for really stepping up to the Premiership this season. We have a settled squad going into the new season. The only notable departure is experienced centre Max McFarlane, who's away to Australia to travel and work abroad, and we wish him all the best with that. Recruitment-wise, we are not a mass recruiting club. We add players who we believe will add value and complement the existing squad that we have. On that, we've got Nicky Thompson joining us from Glasgow Hawks. Nicky was St Al's youngster, so he's rejoining a lot of his former teammates. Aminio Bogadrow and Robbie Baird rejoined the club from Ayr, and Caleb Thompson's an exciting Scotland under-19 winger who's joined us from Boroughmuir. In the pack, we've got John O'Davies, who is currently the president of Strathclyde Uni Rugby team, joining us as a second row. He's played all his rugby at Wastriders Dunpelly. We've got Matthew Conroy returning to the club following a college scholarship in the US, and versatile back row Harry Blackie joins us from Glasgow Hawks. We also have a large influx from our under-18s joining the senior squad this season, and we're excited to see how they get on with the senior squad. In particular, Scotland and GHA under-18 graduates Ben McDougall at standoff, Jamie Henderson at centre, and Lloyd McCreef at number 8, who I'm sure will all have an impact with our senior squad this season. This weekend, we head down to Hawick, which ironically was our last outing of the Premiership club, and where we narrowly came up short. We're excited to see how this squad, majority of which is the same, 2 years older, wiser, and see how they really are looking to relish showing the rest of the Premiership what we have developed into. Starting line-up this weekend, we'll have a settled look to it from what has performed consistently for us last season. Nicky Thompson will be the only new face in the starting line-up as he lines up in centre alongside Charlie Lonigan. We're just looking to finalise the makeup of our bench.
Calum, Forrester there. Hawick versus GHA then. Tough to call, I think, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say it's a real 50-50. You know, GHA on one hand, I've got the confidence from being an unbeaten season in National 1. They can get a bounce on from that. Calum Forrester's an excellent coach, really experienced. I think they've got their act together up there really well, and they look like a progressive club. The main thing for them would be to stay in this division after coming up and then build on it. But going to Mansfield, it's not easy, and it can be daunting. And you know, they're talking about the horse there last time out, which was a couple of years ago, granted. But yeah, for Hawick, it just depends on whether they're ready or not just yet. If they were, you know, if they'd had a good pre-season and boys were settled in, then you'd think home advantage maybe just get them through that. But with the situation, they might just take a game or two, or you know, certainly this week to get going. So yeah, it could be a tough one for Hawick to start with, just because GHA are fully confident, and you know, they've probably not had to suffer, you know, at the hands of a really strong Hawick team, you know, in the last couple of years where you go to Mansfield, it was really difficult. So I don't know, the psyche on that it's a tough one.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Robin, GHA haven't tasted defeat for over a season.
No, and they won the league over and above nailed on favourites Stirling last season, that being National 1, and that, if you win that league, did they go unbeaten?
Yeah, there's one draw.
One draw, so that puts you firmly in the nay mugs category, let's be honest. Somebody will need to fill me in on Hawick's pre-season predicament or lack of games.
Played Musselburgh away.
Oh, they did, that's right.
Which they won.
Yeah, they did that, and that's a good...
which is a good game for them. I wouldn't rule Hawick out at all. Maybe they've been put behind a little bit, who knows, but if they're ready, then they'll be a hard nut to crack.
And this is the thing, Robin, as well, isn't it? I mean, we've always in the recent past, been talking about Hawick as nailed-on favourites and Mansfield Park Fortress and all the rest of it. It's changed times now.
It has, Stuart. There's no two ways about it. They've lost a huge number of high-quality personnel, and it's a cyclical thing. And it's like other the clubs in the Borders, and Neil will know this more than anybody. You don't have a wealth of numbers. It's who could we pick? GHA are an example. They're based in Glasgow. They've got a massive potential pool available to them. Gordonians now up into National 1. Gordonians against Jed, for example. Jed's a town of 4,500 people. Kelso, they're playing now the best team in the Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland in this league. So what right have Jed got to beat Gordonians these days? And that, that's the thing with the Borders clubs, and Hawick are going through that at the moment. I like the look of this guy Moraldo from his highlights reel, but Hawick, I don't see them being playoff contenders this season. If this game against GHA hypothetically being in a neutral venue, I'd fancy GHA, but the Mansfield factor might just be enough to get Hawick over the line.
I'll go for a narrow 1 point Hawick win.
1 point. So we're still going with the home wins?
That's a tight one. If Hawick get off to a good start this season, then they should be fine. If they don't, then they could find themselves looking either over their shoulder or looking up at everybody else.
But pressure's off at Mansfield Park, really, isn't it? Because they are going through changes. I mean, Sean Muir, I think, is still involved. Won't be captain this season. But, you've got quite a few of them who are coming to the end of their career. I mean, I don't know if Lee Armstrong is still going to be playing this season.
I don't think they're going to see Jay Linton till after Christmas, I believe, either, which, that's a massive blow. But then again, they never had him for the vast majority, if not all of last season. So it's cyclical in the Borders. You either have a crop of players at any one given time, or you don't. And Hawick have got less top quality personnel than they did have a couple of years ago. It's as simple as that.
And we're just briefly going to talk about the National 1, because that doesn't come in until next week, obviously, so it's just Premiership matches today, but very relevant to talk about National 1 in the same breath as GHA, because they did get ahead of Stirling County last season, and Stirling County were very strong. I think Stirling County are going to be even stronger this season, and they have to be, because you've got your Musselburghs who have gone down, and two of the other clubs, obviously, who are Premiership teams. You've got Gordonians coming up who are on the crest of a wave. There's only half of last year's National 1 playing this year's National 1.
That's it, and you look at some of the clubs that have dropped into National 1 on top of who's left, like Stirling and Glasgow Accies. And I think in the National 1 and the Premiership this season, there'll be a number of teams, the teams that can honestly put their hand on their heart and say, we're not going to be title contenders, are going to be looking at Gordonians that have come up into National 1 and looking at GHA that have come up in the Premiership and going, how good or how bad are these teams? Because that could decide where we're going to finish this season. If GHA come up and are a breath of fresh air and are competitive, there are clubs going to be looking at that and thinking, right, we're in the mire here because this promoted team have came up and they're not going to be whipping boys. And it's the same in National 1 as well. And
I mentioned Stirling, they've got WP Nell involved and other big names. Kyle Steen, I think, is also involved.
Yeah, they saw them last Saturday at Poinder, and they're a well-oiled outfit. Really organised, really well organised. WPNL was down, he didn't play, and he was heavily involved, and you could see he had an aura about him with the players. And Sean Kennedy's to go, and he's a good lad as well. So they look very, very strong. I would almost say they'll be as strong as what Ayr would be in the Premiership, them in National 1, I think. Maybe not quite as insurmountable, because there's a lot of banana skins in that league. There's some places you have to go that are some places with the environments that you visit that you're sometimes not used to. Stirling haven't played a lot of those clubs for a number of years and things like that. So there is a potential they could slip up. Look at last year. I mean, GHA came out of nowhere, and really, Stirling lost a game or two once the league was gone, but they've really only lost to GHA and that was the difference really, that first time they played them. So they look very, very strong.
We'll be talking more about the National 1 and National 2 next week when that comes into play. But Watsonians versus Kelso is the other match. We've held it back for you, Neil. Full of intrigue, of course, this one, because Watsonians made the final of the playoffs last season, but they no longer have the services of Jason Baggett and Freddie Owsley, or Freddie Owsley if you prefer, this season. Kelso were the 4th ranked border side in the Premiership, going through a bad period mid-season only to claw their way out of the relegation zone. But 2 big highlights last season were doing the double over Watsonians and also claiming the Bill McLaren Shield, and then defending it 4 times in a row at home. And now they have the chance to win it back again because Watsonians are the current holders. Let's hear from Watsonians coach Mike Kerr.
Bit of a turnover of player, obviously, from last season. Lost a lot of experienced Super 6/club players. Freddie Owsley is away down to Chinner. Jason Baggett away down to Richmond. Neil Irvin Hess is retired. Cal Davis is retired. Lost a couple of other good club men who have just moved on to different things. So it's been quite a high turnover of player within the squad. Our forward pack probably remains quite settled from last year, missing Nelly and Cal obviously, but the rest seem to have still stayed around. But a couple of good young additions as well, notably Harry Jackaman, who's a product of Lasswade's school but through Boroughmuir Club, who looks like a real good player for the future, playing in the back row, and a couple of other young guys as well, and a couple of guys from the club who have stepped up as well. So our forward pack is pretty settled and should be pretty experienced moving into the new season. In the backs, it's pretty much all changed within the backs, and quite a young looking but very exciting looking backline, with 2 boys, Harry Clark in the centre and Daniel Kelly on the wing, who were both with me at First 15 last year at Watson's, and then Max Gary, whose dad Andy played for Watsonians back in when I used to ball boy, back in the 90s. He's out of Dollar from last year. So a pretty young, inexperienced backline, but full of potential, full of talent, full of pace. So we'll be hoping for a dry day as it's been against Kelso on Saturday. And try and get that ball moving around. Still a few experienced heads in there. Ronan Kerr's still around. Murray Scott. It will be an exciting backline if we can get the ball and get it moving. Obviously, last year we had a pretty successful season, although we came up short in air in the final when we had a pretty poor 10 minutes at the start of the game where we were 3 tries down. Never really got back to that, or could get back from that. But hopefully the guys that were involved in that are still around, which there is obviously still a fair few, will have learnt from it and keen to sort of progress again this season. As mentioned before, we're obviously going to be quite a young team, but our aim will still be to obviously finish as high as we can and to sort of push for that top 4 place to get into the playoffs, which I think if we can play the style of rugby that we want to play and that is kind of embedded in the Watsons DNA, which is obviously quite fast paced, trying to play to a bit of width and trying to play with a bit of flair and imagination, then I think we could have a good season. There'll be a few things that will depend on that, a few variables that might not go our way, but we're certainly looking to have as strong a season as we did last year, whilst also realising that we need to be developing these young boys to move on to bigger and better things, possibly play at a higher level, whether that's with Edinburgh or down south or anywhere. These young guys will be trying to forge a career in rugby potentially, and it's on us to try and develop them the best that we can moving forward and push them on to achieve the best they can within the game. So yeah, it's a season full of excitement. The training's been good, pre-season's gone well, very coachable group that are looking to improve, ask lots of questions and trying to get the most out of myself and Davey Finn and Richard Snedden and really wanting to develop as rugby players and as I say, trying to be the best that they could be. In terms of Saturday, well, Kelso beat us twice last year, which I mean they played really well. We were well short when we played down there first game of the season. We're missing a few boys, and we did well to come away with 2 bonus points from memory, but we were really poor at home last year. So we'll be looking to right a few wrongs in terms of against Kelso this year, who, as we all know, will be a very well drilled team under Nicky and Bruce, and they've also got a really good blend of experience and young talented players who play a nice style of rugby. Always a good atmosphere against Kelso, obviously. My sort of heritage with Kelso goes way back, but it's always a good place to go down in Poinder, and you always get a good vocal crowd that come away as well. So it's a game that we'll be looking forward to, and if we can move the ball around, if it's a nice day for us to play some attractive rugby, then it could be a good game for the neutral to come and watch as well. Hopefully we come out on the right side against Kelso this year, having, as I said, lost twice to them last year. Bill McLaren Shields up for grabs, which again adds that little bit of extra motivation. But yeah, just looking to get the season off to a good start, try and build that bit of momentum and try and build that confidence within our young squad. In terms of team news, experienced, stable front row, Cole Lamberton, Matt Pritchard, Craig Davidson, who were all with us last year. Martin McGinley as well is back, which is great for us. Quagga and Louis Ball are back. Andrew McInnes, again, all these guys were around last year. Stu Allison, who's a good operator in the back row. Young Harry Jackman, as I mentioned before, who's one to watch. And then in the back line, a new 9, 10, 12, potentially looking at the makeup of the team. All young, all really keen, energetic, like to play on the front foot, like to play a good brand of rugby. So Andy McLean at 10, who's come from Hawks. Harry Clark, Dom Coetzee, Ronan Kerr, looking around those sort of centre positions, possibly Dom at fullback. Loman McPherson, that is a quality club player, and then young Daniel Kelly, who should actually still be in school. He's young enough to still be in school. He's having coached him for the last 2 years at school. He missed all last year with a bad shoulder injury, but he, for me, has got a huge amount of potential to go far in the game. And it'll be really interesting having coached these guys at school and having seen these guys around the school game. Be interesting to see how they cope with the demands of adult rugby and progress their journey, as I said before, from school to club, which is obviously something at the school with my school hat on. We're keen to keep those links as high as possible between Watson's school and Watson's club. So yeah, it's nice to see these guys playing. So as I say, a pretty settled forward pack, backs, young, talented. There could be ones to watch out there.
So that's the Watsonians perspective from Mike Kerr. Let's go directly to the Director of Rugby now here at Kelso. You're hearing that for the first time. You're taking on Watsonians.
Yeah, for me, Watsons look like they're in a little bit of a transition from the old guard, similar to HERIOT'S, but again, it makes space for some of their exciting youngsters, and knowing Mike Kerr really well and how he operates at the school with George Watson's, most of the players that he produces out there that do go on to play for the likes of Watson's first team, club team, are usually very, very talented, and again maybe bouncing to university teams in England and so on. So it'll be interesting to see just how good some of them are as well, and I know Michael prides himself on giving them the opportunity, and then how good, seeing how good they can be. So they're dangerous because they play with no fear, and if they've got a forward pack that, by the sounds of it, with the names you mentioned there, they could get some parity on a dry pitch, wide pitch at Mireside. If these guys got plenty of gas, which is usually the case, then they've got a fancy, haven't they? But again, it's up to us to then slow that down. We've got to get them onto an even keel and probably an arm wrestle. We've got to get them into a real game, a real hard battle that, we've got to ask them to go to a dark place to beat us, and that's when we're at our best, when we're doing that. Any points up there would still be a good result, especially first game of the season, but if we would go up there and underperform, that's when the doubts start to come in your mind and so on. But I'm confident in the way things have went in pre-season, the way the guys are at Kelso, and the team ethos that we have as a club, that we'll be very competitive at Mireside.
And what about your team news?
We've actually rewarded some players from pre-season. Angus McGregor starts in front of Grant Shields. Grant didn't play last week, Angus did, and he played well, so he keeps his place. Same with Nick Barnes. Ewan Knox played for our seconds. He got a full game, but again, Nick played well, so he keeps his place. Dan Gamble is captain at tight head. In second row, we've got what looks like a good partnership with Cammy Thompson and Gregor Law, who's just joined the club. He's never missed a night of pre-season so far. He looks fit, and last week he had a good game, so long may that continue for him personally and for us. Back row, quite exciting, 6 and 7. A bit of dog about us there with Will Jones coming up for Darlington. He was captain of Darlington for the last 3 seasons. He's got abundance of experience. He's quite dynamic, likes to get over the ball, which is what we've been missing. Billy McNeil starts at 7, Bruce's stepson. He's hungry at the moment to get back at rugby at a decent level, and so far he's trained well and he's played well in pre-season also. Bruce is at number 8, as you'd expect. 9 is Andy Tate. 10 is Liam Herdman. 12 is Angus Atterson, who is in for Frankie. Frankie's wife just had twins, so congratulations to Frankie
Robson, yeah.
So he misses this week. And 13 Adam Hall, which is normal. Wingers Dwayne Patterson and James Thompson with Barber at fullback. So fairly settled. We are missing Frankie and we're missing the 2 Tweedy brothers. Obviously, fortunately, Robbie got probably most of the season out. He fractured his tibia last Saturday, and due to work commitments and the farm and everything, Hamish is going to now pick up the slack, so he's unavailable as well, which is unfortunate, but that's life. Where we are as a team, we'll really find out tomorrow where we are. And Nicky, Bruce, and Jason Henry, who's been coaching, he came in first day pre-season. He's picked up a job in Bermuda as head of Bermuda Rugby.
Where are Bermuda ranked in the world rankings?
I don't know.
Robin, any ideas?
High 20s.
High 20s, what do you reckon?
37.
74. Just behind Austria. However, what he will be getting, 24 to 30 degrees right through to December.
Yeah.
Would you have taken that job?
No, I'd burn in that, Stuart. I suit Bermuda shirt, so yeah.
But yes, well done to Jason Henry. So he's had 2 weeks at Kelso.
Well, he's been there since the end of June in our preparation.
All right, yeah.
I mean, he didn't know he was going to get this job either. I mean, none of this was planned.
No.
And obviously had a settled job at Dalkeith as the youth development officer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's came along, but he's been great for us. Been a really good character, and he's done everything that's been asked. He's been learning off of Nicky. We're sad to see him go, really, because we were doing well with him and the players like him.
Look who's come in though.
Yeah.
Couldn't get out. He couldn't get in quick enough.
Yeah, he's loving that. Yeah.
Who? Tell us.
Well, Matty Douglas has joined us. He's moved into Roxburgh Street in Kelso. If anybody knows their geography, they'll know that that's about a 5-minute walk from Poynter Park. So he was out he was coaching Edinburgh women. He's been in our high performance group at SIU regarding coaching. So it's a bit of a coup for us to get him along with what we've already got there. He just wants to keep progressing in rugby. Given that he's living in the town, given that Jason was leaving, and he wasn't doing anything, it made a lot of sense. So he's been along to a couple of sessions already, and Jason finishes on the 30th against Hawick at home, and Matty takes over his reins on Monday, the 1st of September.
So you've got 3 quality head coaches there, all in the same club.
Yeah, could get some good arguments this year.
Can we do a fly in the wall documentary? That'd be quite fun, particularly with McNeil involved there.
Yeah.
Robin, you've heard all that. Watsonians versus Kelso. We've all gone for home wins so far. What are you going to say?
I'm within reach. I'm within reach of his right mitt at the moment. So, no, I genuinely think that this is another really tough one to call. To be honest, like Melrose and HERIOT'S and like Hawick v GHA, this could go either way. You start to rattle off the names that Watsonians have lost: Osley, Baggett, Irvin Hesh. Baggett's a massive miss. That he
controlled the game.
He's a proper Super Series player. Baggett, Lewis Berg, they lost sort of midway through last season. Carl Davis, that's us. But then you start to listen to the team that Mike rattled off there: Quagga Van Niekerk, Louis Ball, Loman McPherson, Andy McLean's come in. That's a good signing. So yeah, early in the season, tough to call. I expect it to be tight, and it could genuinely go either way. I think for Kelso, looking at this away game first of the season, if I was in Neil's shoes, if Kelso come back down the road with 2 points, for example, a couple of bonus points, I wouldn't be overly despondent. At that, they've chalked off one of the toughest assignments of the season as well. But yeah, Kelso, Dwayne Patterson, he's turned into a class operator. Adam Hall is a really good player. Herdman is a really exciting talent. 10, couple of good signings in there. Gregor Law from Jed. He'll be looking to prove himself again at the higher level. Will Jones sounds really exciting, and the biggest coup of them all, not a player, Matty Douglas.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Robin, prediction then?
Kelso to shade it by less than 5 points.
It'd be really unfair of me to ask Neil. Neil, what's your prediction?
Go for a Kelso win.
Win.
We'll get off to a good start. The players will be, we'll have to dig really deep. We'll have to get Watsonians into that doubting themselves a bit as well and say, well, can we ever beat Kelso?
I think that's a big thing for Kelso as well, Neil. Well, we've beat this lot twice last season. It's not like you're going to, with the best will in the world, it's not like you're going to Milbury.
I think if you're going to play an Edinburgh side, you want to play them first game of the season, because they might come out guns blazing and you get a pasting, but there's always a chance that they're a little bit unorganised because personnel turn up late, people are getting involved because it's league time. How many players have that group of players that Mike's speaking about, have they played together yet, and things like that. That might go in their favour if they're just, hopefully we're getting them a little bit rusty. That would help. But again, they've just got that much talent that they could just be on fire. But one thing we'd like to think from our point of view is that we can go there and give our best shot, and we'll be consistent in the fact that we'll be tough to beat. We need to keep that mentality going at the club. We finished the season like that. If we can carry on at this season like that, I'm sure that'll keep us where we need to be.
Well, thanks very much indeed to the lads here for today. It's only the Premiership boys who are playing tomorrow, of course, as we mentioned. The other 4 National League sides join the party next Saturday, and we'll go in depth on that one on next week's podcast. But our commentary game on Rugby Radio tomorrow will be Melrose v HERIOT'S from the Greenyards. Robin and Scott Tomlinson will be in the commentary box. As I say, former Selkirk player, head coach of St Boswell's and Jed Forrester in the past, referee as well, so plenty of insight into the game from Scott. And Sam Matthews will be at Currie against Selkirk for us as well. We're on air at 2:30 all the way through till 5 o'clock, and we're also having a regular programme now at 7 o'clock each Saturday where we round up the matches, hear post-match reaction from players and coaches as well to the games that have taken place. So make a note of that in your diary. Rugby Roundup on air at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. But that's it for today. Bye for now.